Hey guys, Kid from the future here. Really quickly, today's guest talks about some pretty personal topics, and so I just wanted to remind everyone to please be respectful in the comments section. Additionally, this guest speculated on a few shows as a member of their production staff. These comments were purely speculative, as the block does not represent any Minecraft Survivor or Org series currently or in the past. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to The Block, the first Minecraft and Org game show community interview podcast. I'm your host, professional victim Kid Moto, and today we have a really special guest. While last week's guest was able to provide some informative commentary on what being young and polarizing in the community is like, today's guest can hopefully provide the opposite perspective. Bursting onto the recorded scene in Chris's Minecraft Survivor the Caribbean, Tim has become one of the most recognizable faces from the modern era of the community. Famous from video or confessionals to multiple game show wins, and even his own series of games, Tim has dominated a space that many international players, frankly, have kind of struggled in. So, without further ado, please welcome Mr. Pirate Bear himself, Timmy Four Numbers. Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on. What an introduction. You said you wrote a good one. You weren't kidding. I thought you were going to make fun of me, but that was actually quite nice. Thank you.
Look, I do a lot of research for these, and I try and paint all my guests in a positive light, even if for some it's more difficult than others. Well, go ahead. I just want you to dive right in because I'm looking forward to this European wit of yours. Give me a state of the community in your eyes right now. A few weeks ago, Echo said that the community is at its peak in his 12 years. Do you agree with that assessment?
I mean, I don't completely disagree, but I certainly don't agree with the whole, like you said, peak. I feel like there was a different peak. Usually, in the 2 years I've been here, whenever summer hit, like the time we are in right now, actually, you would see a huge boost, and usually that would go along with either one of Chris's seasons starting or a bunch of new people joining. But with everyone already being home the past year, like no one really went back to work or to school. So there wasn't really a point where people came back in or like people got more free time to come back. So I feel like we've been stagnant. I've noticed that compared to back in the day, there was tons of servers. You could go to public advertisements in any server and see, I'd say, on 20 games hosted per weekend. Big Brothers, Amazing Races, Survivors, Staples, people who would host 20 seasons in like a month. And now, while I agree, it's certainly in a healthy state. It's certainly not at its peak because it used to be a lot better, if you ask me.
I've asked this to pretty much everyone that's come on the show at this point. Are as an avid member of the community, are you concerned that this like stagnation and this trend is going to continue as more stuff opens back up and real life hits?
Yeah and no. I'm not in the community as much anymore as I used to be in the grander scale. I hang out with friends more, so I can't really comment on how it is in every single server. But I like to think that that COVID isn't gonna impact the community's lifeline as much. I think it has more to do with people's interest deteriorating over time. But I can't speak on that behalf for anyone. But especially with all the big series ending now, I wouldn't be surprised if more and more people leave now.
Let's get into that because I think you're more qualified to speak on this topic than I think anyone that I could talk to outside of maybe Chris or Kyle themselves, because a lot of people might not realize this, but you've actually served on the building and production teams, I believe, for every single major community game show. Is seeing your work featured in all the community's best shows, is that a rewarding avenue for you?
For me, it's more about giving back. You guys give so much to me. I want to give you guys back. And if people seeing a cool tribal, people seeing a cool new challenge, a cool build, if that makes their experience watching the show better, then that makes me happy. And I'm happy that it makes other people happy. So sure, it's cool, but I don't do it purely for my own pleasure or being like, oh fuck yeah, that's me, and now people are gonna think of me when watching the season. No, I want people to be like, wow, that's cool, that really fits the team.
You've attempted a couple of seasons of your own. You've hosted and edited and recorded some non-recordeds as well. What's the status of you as a content creator outside of a player?
I mean, as far as that one recorded season goes, there's a trailer out there if you look at my channel name. I wanted to do that really badly. It was more so a holy shit, I roasted a really cool season with a bunch of my best friends and it turned out really well. And I never planned on recording it. I recorded it for memory's sake, like some people do. It's a 15-hour just unedited recording of the whole thing with even like different tabs showing up. It's so much work and I have to go back and do it all. And for a few weeks I was like, oh, I have so much time anyway. COVID or Corona wasn't ending anytime soon. So why don't I just make this like a side project? And it happened to be right there that some of the restrictions here in the Netherlands started opening back up. So I was like, okay, fuck that. I'm going to be able to finish that. So I basically put a stop to that. And if I ever find the time to do it again, I'll do it. And then regarding the rest of my series, it's more so just private games which I'll host if I feel really passionate about it. I don't have that time or passion anymore. I'm sure as hell passionate about Survivor and helping the community be there and grow and helping people like Chris and Carl achieve their goals when they need me, or anyone that will want my help or ask me for help. That's there. But for my own personal projects, as far as Minecraft goes, I feel like I've given everything I have.
I have to ask this, and I know it's a potentially uncomfortable question, but you have served on production for Chris and Kyle. After Kyle's recent video, after the end of the Nile, I know that fans and community members are going to be asking, uh, do you think we'll ever see another season from those? Or is the onus on some of the other content creators to take the torch, so to speak, and move the community forward?
It's tough because at the end of the day, it's never going to be. Of course, like Carl and Chris are two of my, I'd say, closest friends I have. So I'd like to think I know them pretty well. But at the end of the day, uh, it's their call, right? It's always going to be Chris can say no forever, Carl can say no forever, and it'll be that way, and we can advise them to not do it. And then maybe a week later, they'll suddenly be like, "Oh wow, I really do want to do this." But if you want my personal take on it, and from what I've observed from being on the production teams, there's more to the careers of these guys than just Minecraft Survivor. And I like seeing more and more people in the comments understand that. There's of course still a majority of people who are like, "Oh, when's the next season?" And they ask it a million times in general, and you have to keep redirecting them to the fact that everywhere it says he's taking a break. You never know how long that break's going to be. Chris said he was done after season 7, and he was back 3 months later. But I do feel like this time is different because, without exposing too much about Chris's personal life, there's more going on there than just Minecraft Survivor. It's something he's really proud of, and it's something. And I mean, he will always keep there. It will never go away. He'll never delete it. He'll never try and forget about it. He's passionate about it. He still enjoys it. It's just that there's different things to focus on in life that I think are overtaking the priority from Minecraft Survivor. COVID really helped in pushing, for example, Chris into making another season. I always knew, for example, that Kyle wanted to push his season until at least season 10 because that's what he wanted to get to. I think that Kyle will 100% get there at some point. That could be 2 months, 5 years, whatever. Chris, I don't know. It's more so a thing of if he gets settled well and and starts being able to do his thing IRL, and because he really wants to like start doing it again because he's really been at a still standing point during COVID. But I think if he manages to get going again and he has free time, I wouldn't be surprised if the idea starts rumbling, even if it's a live streamed 12-hour thing, etc., or if it's just a shorter version of the game show. I'm sure it could happen, but I'd always be of the camp where I say, don't expect it. If it does happen, great. If it doesn't happen, then we got an awesome final season. So it's more of a thing of, if it does happen, great. Should you expect it? No. If it does happen, though, then hey, hopefully it was worth the wait.
I think a lot for a lot of people, it's a lack of, first of all, the maturity to know that, and you touched on it a bit for about yourself too, that as you get older, you have more responsibility, and those responsibilities take precedent over your hobbies. And then the other thing I think, and where I can sympathize with some people, is that it's something they grew up with themselves. Like, this community has had a huge impact on a lot of different people, and people don't like change. And the end of a series and the beginning of new ones, that's all change, and people tend to fight back against that. So I appreciate your commentary on that. I want to shift just really quick. We talked a little bit about age and about wisdom. How does a 30 something year old pirate from the Netherlands fall into a community of American gays and furries? I am genuinely so interested to know.
um, I mean, it's before I say anything, two of my closest friends are both completely different people than I am, including you. It's they are so completely different. I'm a um, hopefully without stepping on anyone's toes, a super heterosexual uh, white male from the Netherlands, and I hang out in the weekends with people online who are so much different than I am. They live their lives in 90% different ways, politically, sexually, just ideologically. They live it completely differently. So when I first ended up in the community, it was such a like holy shit. I really want to play Survivor, but I have to like mix myself with people that are so different than I am on every level. And the first few times I was like, okay, there is a stereotype with old people playing game shows where you know they might be creeps and people might think you're weird. So for me, it was more about shoving my good traits of my personality in people's faces at first, where it's like, I'm a cool guy, and like, let's avoid the age question for now. And then it came to the point where I was starting to develop a personality in the community. There's always that point where at first you're new, you'll join a few servers, no one will know anything about you. Then you start playing a few game shows, and then you start getting known, and this and that. You establish yourself, and you sort of make a brand in the MC community, which is something I see missing a lot of times nowadays in the modern community, I'd say. But once you have that, people do start getting to know you. And at that point, I had to start telling about myself, and people were like, what the fuck? There's this old guy that's in our community now, and he has all of this and that. And it starts getting hard because some people did over the course of me being here. They had really, I'll just say I'm no crybaby, but they have some really terrible things to say about you because of your age. And it's hard fitting in with everyone. I've had many friend groups in the MC community, um, and the people I was connected with are the people who understood that you know, I'm here to play game shows and make friends, and appreciate my character in the way where it's not just he's the old guy, if that makes sense. And um, it was only up until when I got into Chris's series where the brand took off, right? He's the old guy. He's the oldest guy to ever play and recorded. And I started noticing that people were a lot more accepting to the fact that I was there. And it was a really heartfelt moment. People cheering for you. You're the only Dutch guy so far in the community to play MC Survivor. And it changes the entire thing because now people are looking at you where it's like, okay, he's like a community example for certain people. Not everyone has to be 18, 20, 16, 12, 14 to play in these. There's an old guy to root for, and there's a new dynamic in the mix. And I personally feel like people really took to that. And especially some of the I never really connected with the newer people in the community. I noticed myself very quickly fluctuating towards veterans and people that have been in the community longer started talking to me, and I started, quickly developing an almost veteran leadership type role for some people in the, I'll say, quote unquote, minor leagues back in the day. So I think that's really where that all came from, me being in the community, and then that's where the eventual push the Chris and Carl series came from too.
Was it ever isolating trying to connect with people? Obviously, you've been really successful at it at this point, but in the beginning, were there ever moments where you said, what the hell am I doing? This is too much.
I remember my first game show. I was pretty quickly. It was with a group of people that I don't often like talking about, but I guess people who are watching the show who are from that period can guess who they were. They were pretty quickly picked out and just harassed out of the game show, and that's how the smaller games were back in the day. Yeah, it was difficult at, I'd say, at least the first few weeks, because in the first few weeks I was like everyone. I only had time on the weekends, but I was obsessed. I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I can spend the entire week just working and being with my wife, and then on Saturday I can ask off like 1 or 2 days and apply for one of these. But it was so tough a few times because sometimes people would go really personal, even in the minor shows, the small shows. People would really want to get to know people, and there were times when I was completely shut out just because I was like, okay, I was 30 at the time. I was like, okay, I'm 30, and people were like, ooh, you know, aren't you like some sort of creep for being here? Why are you even playing? And then I'd usually make it pretty far and okay, but no one really connected me. So you weren't really making friends, and I always hated that about Survivor. Like, if there's no one that wants to talk to you after the game, and there were a few games that no one wanted to, and people were really mean about it, and yeah, it did suck a few times.
Tim, I could legitimately talk to you for hours, and honestly, I would love to maybe even have you back again in the future. But I have two more questions because I am getting close to my own arbitrary time limit that I set
I
up for myself. I'm an outsider to the org community. The vast majority of the news that I hear is negative because it's just not a world that I'm a part of. That being said, from what I understand, controversy surrounds org
hmm
players. You are someone that has been known to kind of not mince words. You're someone that says what's on your mind. How do you think you've avoided controversy, if you have at all, over the last 2 years? And is it something just to do with like your demeanor, your attitude, or is there something more to it?
think it's attitude and risk of like giving a fuck, if that makes sense. Because you have all these young people online where it's like, for some people this is everything to them. Like they will check their phone every 5 minutes to see if they have a new ping or whatever, and they'll clear all their messages to make sure no one's talking to them. I really don't give a fuck. Like, if I get cancelled, like, what do you? Okay, I get cancelled. I have a restaurant, a wife, a baby, and a lovely family kid to go back to. I'm fine. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'll be myself. If I eventually get cancelled, okay. It's like, we're here to have fun. I want to try and be myself. I say what's on my mind. And if someone's like, "Oh, you can't do that," I'll apologize. If you're genuinely offended and like you don't like it, unless you're like, I can make like hideous fun of my close friends, offensive fun even. If it's something minor and someone gets offended in like a game show, I'll say sorry. If that's not, I want everyone to have fun. But it doesn't mean I'm just going to like tiptoe around every issue or whatever. No, I'm going to say exactly what's happening and like what's on my mind, because that's me. Why would I say anything else? And I'm not trying to be like some villain. Like, some people will say like, "Oh, that's me. Like, I'm a bad guy," and be a villain. There's a significant difference between being an actual asshole and like saying things that are on your mind that you shouldn't be saying.
I want you to put on your fatherly overcoat for this last question, but get your wise thinking cap on. What advice would you give to, let's say, a brand new crop of community members that might be coming this summer, to how to successfully like have fun in this community while also balancing what's important in life?
It's it's difficult because um to join a community like this is a commitment in itself. You have to be a really, really, really big Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, Quest, or whatever people want to do nowadays, fan to sit down for 16, 12, 8 hours to do one of these. How to have fun? That's completely subjective to how you want to do it. If you want a general tip to it, though, I think not restricting yourself into trying to play a perfect or whatever game. You are still being you in a game, and I see it all the time in recorders, especially. we watch and love that show every week when it's on, and we try to mirror ourselves after those people. Fuck that. Just go out there and do what you enjoy doing. If people don't like up to your character, then you can always evolve, but never try to put on something that you're not. I'm not doing the whole cheesy YouTube influencer who cries on camera doing the thing. I'm like, oh, be yourself or whatever. No, like, you can certainly try and be someone else during a game show, but never, be an asshole just to sake for being an asshole. Do something that maybe isn't you, but you're still having fun doing it and making sure that, the overall experience of everyone gets bettered by it. When it comes to keeping the community alive, just keep doing it. There's always going to be people who are interested in it. When it seems bad, keep doing it. It has to be a certain fire burning in your soul to want to keep doing these, because for people who've never played these before, it's such an intense and great amount of work to really put on a quality show, and people forget that it's a show sometimes. It's not a job. If you're not having fun doing it, then don't. That's my number one piece of advice to how to play as a new player. If you're not having fun, then don't do it. If you're not having fun doing your job in real life, you're gonna quit eventually. Why force yourself to be doing something you're not enjoying? That would be my major advice for anyone new in the community. Besides that, use common sense. I see a lot of people not using common sense. You know what's right for you. Don't try and lower your standards to do something that you're being egged on to do by people that don't have the same standard as you, if that makes sense. And be kind.
Tim, I want to thank you again so much for being willing to come on the show and opening up about some really personal things. It's when I set out to start this show, this is the kind of conversations that I was really hoping to have with really recognizable figures throughout the community. So I genuinely appreciate you coming on. And to quote our favorite Mr. Kyle, I think we'll be seeing you again in the future for sure, because there's still so much I want to ask you.
I mean, thank you for letting me get on, and if you ever have time, I'd love to come back.